Ladies, let's have a real conversation. Respect is the foundation of every relationship, and once it's gone, everything else starts to crumble. Too often, women do things without realizing how they quietly chip away at a man's respect, not because they're bad people, but because no one ever told them the truth. Today, I'm going to be brutally honest with you. If you keep doing these 7 things, you're not just losing his respect, you're losing yourself. But if you stop, you step into your power, and trust me, respect isn't just about him, it's about you. When you make apologizing your default response, you diminish your presence without even realizing it. An apology is meant to be an acknowledgement of genuine mistakes, a way of taking ownership when we've done something wrong or caused harm. But when you start apologizing for existing, for having needs, for expressing opinions, or simply for taking up space, what you communicate, consciously or unconsciously, is that your presence is a problem. Men notice this, people in general notice this, and once it becomes a pattern, it starts to erode respect, not just from others but also the respect you hold for yourself. Think about how many times a day you catch yourself saying "I'm sorry," when what you really mean is "excuse me," "thank you," or even nothing at all. It happens when someone bumps into you and you instinctively apologize as if you were the one at fault. It happens when you voice an idea and immediately follow it up with "sorry, just my opinion." It happens when you need something and preface it with "sorry to bother you." Each of these little moments chips away at your authority and strength. Over time, those around you internalize the message that you don't value your own voice, and if you don't value it, why should they? Respect between a man and a woman is not built on constant concession, it is built on mutual recognition of value. If you constantly apologize for things you don't need to, you start to appear insecure, unsure of yourself, and hesitant. That's not attractive energy, that's energy that signals weakness. Now, don't confuse this with humility. Humility is powerful. It's the ability to be grounded and aware of your limitations without diminishing your worth. Over-apologizing isn't humility, it's self-erasure, and self-erasure kills respect. A man wants to feel like he's with a woman who believes in her own value, who doesn't flinch when she takes up space, and who can stand in her truth unapologetically. Imagine a woman walking into a room. She's confident. She says "thank you" instead of "sorry." When someone holds the door, she speaks her ideas without undercutting herself, and she asserts her needs with clarity. Now imagine another woman who walks into the same room, apologizes for being late even though she's right on time, says sorry. When she speaks up and lowers her voice when challenged, which one holds more respect? Which one do people pay attention to? Which one do men look at and think, "This woman values herself, so I need to value her too"? The answer is obvious. When you apologize unnecessarily, you teach people how to treat you. You're teaching them that your needs come second, that your opinions aren't solid, that you're someone who can be walked over. And men, even if they don't consciously articulate it, register this. Respect is not just about admiration. It's about trust. A man needs to feel he can trust that you'll hold your ground, that you won't fold under pressure, that you respect yourself enough not to let anyone, including him, diminish your worth. If you're constantly apologizing, you signal the opposite, that you don't trust yourself, that you can't stand firmly on your own. Breaking this habit starts with awareness. The next time you feel the word "sorry" slipping out of your mouth, stop and ask yourself, am I apologizing for something I genuinely did wrong, or am I apologizing for existing? If it's the latter, replace it with something more powerful. Instead of "sorry I'm late," say "thank you for waiting." Instead of "sorry to bother you," say "do you have a moment?" Instead of "sorry, just my opinion," say "here's what I think." These shifts may seem small, but over time they rewire not just how others see you, but how you see yourself. Men respect women who respect themselves. If you carry yourself like your presence is a problem, it will become one. If you carry yourself like your presence is valuable, it will be treated as valuable. Respect isn't handed to you. It's commanded by the way you show up in the world. And when you stop apologizing for things you don't need to, you begin to reclaim the power you've been giving away one sorry at a time. Begging for attention or validation is one of the fastest ways to lose someone's respect, especially a man's. Attention and validation are powerful when they come freely, when they're given because someone genuinely sees your worth and admires who you are. But the second you start chasing it, asking for it, or bending over backwards just to get a little of it, you shift the balance of power in the relationship. Instead of being seen as a woman who knows her value, you're seen as someone who doubts it and needs constant reassurance. That creates an imbalance because respect cannot coexist with desperation. When a man senses that you're chasing his approval, it doesn't make him respect you more. It makes him respect you less because he realizes you don't fully respect yourself. Many women fall into this trap without realizing it. You send a text, he doesn't respond quickly, so you send another. You try to post something online hoping he'll notice it. You drop hints, you push for compliments, you get upset when he doesn't constantly affirm how much he likes you or how good you look. These actions might come from a place of insecurity or a genuine desire to feel appreciated, but the effect is the same. It makes you look needy. And neediness is not the same thing as vulnerability. Vulnerability is strength. It's being open and authentic. Neediness is grasping for external validation because you don't trust your internal worth. The truth is, a man values what he has to invest in, not what is constantly chasing after him. When you hold yourself with dignity, when you know you are enough whether or not someone acknowledges it, that's when respect grows. But if you're constantly seeking his validation, he begins to feel like he's in control of your self-worth. That's not attractive, that's exhausting. Men want a partner, not someone they have to prop up every second of the day. Respect comes when he feels he's with someone who stands on her own 2 feet, not someone who collapses the moment he doesn't provide constant attention. Consider the difference between 2 women. One knows who she is. She doesn't need likes on social media to validate her beauty. She doesn't need a man's constant approval to validate her intelligence. She doesn't panic when a text goes unanswered for a few hours. She lives her life confident that she is enough. The other is constantly refreshing her phone, dissecting every little interaction, seeking constant reassurance that she's loved, attractive, and worthy. Which one commands more respect? Which one creates desire instead of draining it? Which one makes a man think, I'd better step up because she doesn't need me, but she chooses me? Respect always flows toward the woman who respects herself first. The need for external validation often comes from a place of fear. Fear of being overlooked, fear of being abandoned, fear of not being good enough. But you cannot control how someone else sees you, only how you see yourself. The moment you stop begging for attention is the moment you begin to radiate self-respect. You no longer need his compliments to feel beautiful because you already know you are. You no longer need his texts to feel valued because you already value yourself. You no longer panic over whether he notices you because you've noticed yourself. That is the energy that attracts real respect. It's magnetic, not desperate. Men respect women who know their worth without needing to be reminded of it every moment. They want someone who stands strong in her identity, who knows her beauty, her intelligence, her capability, without pleading for validation. When you stop begging for attention, you create space for genuine admiration. You stop chasing and start receiving. And when you carry yourself that way, the respect you command isn't just from men, it's from everyone around you, including yourself. Disrespect disguised as jokes is one of the most subtle yet damaging things that can happen in a relationship, and too often it goes unchecked. It usually starts small, a little jab about how you drive, a sarcastic comment about your appearance, a playful remark about your intelligence. At first, it might seem harmless, even funny. You might laugh it off or tell yourself not to be too sensitive. But when these comments repeat and you allow them to pass without addressing them, they begin to shape the way he sees you and the way you see yourself. Every time you let a disrespectful joke slide, you send the message that it's acceptable to minimize you, to mock you, or to belittle you under the disguise of humor. Over time, this erodes respect, and once respect is gone, it is very hard to get it back. Men test boundaries in subtle ways, not always consciously. Sometimes what starts as a joke is really a way of gauging what you'll tolerate. If he makes a sarcastic comment about how long it takes you to get ready and you brush it off, he learns that belittling your effort is okay. If he jokes about you not being smart enough or mocks your ideas and you stay silent, he learns that your voice doesn't matter. What you allow is what will continue. Jokes are often just truth wrapped in humor, and if you don't set the standard early on, those jokes become normalized patterns of disrespect. There's a huge difference between playful teasing in a relationship and jokes that cross into disrespect. Playful teasing builds closeness, it's mutual, it's balanced, and it makes both people laugh. Disrespectful jokes, however, create imbalance. They elevate one person at the expense of the other. They make you the punchline. And once you become comfortable being the punchline, respect fades fast. A man who respects you will be mindful of his words even when he's joking. He won't take cheap shots at your expense, and if he does and you call it out, he'll adjust because he values you. A man who doesn't respect you will continue making those jokes, no matter how uncomfortable they make you feel, because he knows you'll tolerate it. Allowing these kinds of jokes also affects your own self-image. You might start questioning whether there's truth in the comments, even if you know deep down they're meant to belittle you. Repeated enough, they can chip away at your confidence, making you doubt yourself and seek validation in unhealthy ways. And once your confidence is shaken, it's harder to stand up for yourself, which creates a vicious cycle where the disrespect grows. This is why it's so important to address these moments directly, early, and firmly. Standing up against disrespect disguised as humor doesn't mean you're overly sensitive or that you can't take a joke. It means you value yourself enough not to let someone minimize you. When a man sees that you won't tolerate being the butt of his jokes, he either adjusts his behavior or reveals that he was never going to respect you in the first place. Either way, you win because you've drawn a line that protects your dignity. Men respect boundaries even when they push against them because boundaries signal strength. If you want lasting respect in a relationship, you have to make it clear that you will not be diminished in the name of humor. You can laugh, you can play, you can enjoy each other's quirks, but you never allow someone to build themselves up by tearing you down, even with a smile on their face. Respect grows when both people feel safe, valued, and uplifted. The moment you allow yourself to be disrespected under the cover of a joke, you hand away a piece of your power. The moment you refuse it, you claim that power back and show that your dignity is not up for negotiation. Overgiving to people who undervalue you is one of the most draining patterns a woman can fall into, and it's a silent killer of respect in any relationship. Giving in itself is a beautiful quality. It shows generosity, kindness, and love. But when giving becomes unbalanced, when you're constantly pouring into someone who never pours back into you, it stops being generosity and turns into self-betrayal. Men notice this imbalance even if they don't say it. Instead of respecting you for how much you give, they begin to take it for granted. What was once an act of love becomes expected, then unnoticed, and eventually unappreciated. The respect they once had begins to fade because respect does not thrive where boundaries are ignored. When you continuously overgive, you train the other person to expect it. You make it easy for them not to invest in the relationship because you're carrying the weight for both of you. You cook, you clean, you plan, you compromise, you sacrifice, all in hopes that your effort will earn their love or make them value you more. But relationships don't work like that. You can't buy respect with service. In fact, the harder you try, the more it often backfires, because overgiving signals that you don't believe you're worthy of receiving in return. It tells him that your role is to prove your worth instead of standing firm in the fact that you are already worthy. Men respect balance, not servitude. A man will admire a woman who gives, but he will respect a woman who knows when to stop giving. That's because respect comes from seeing strength, and strength means knowing your limits. If you're constantly giving to someone who undervalues you, you send the message that you're okay with being taken advantage of, and once that message is sent, the dynamic shifts. He no longer sees you as an equal partner, but as someone who exists to fulfill his needs. That's not partnership, that's imbalance, and imbalance never sustains respect. There's also an emotional cost to overgiving. When you give too much without receiving in return, resentment builds. You start to feel exhausted, unappreciated, and invisible. That resentment then leaks into your interactions, creating distance instead of closeness. Ironically, the very thing you thought would strengthen the relationship, your constant giving, becomes the thing that weakens it. And deep down, he feels it too. He may not articulate it, but he senses the lack of balance, and instead of respect, what grows is either entitlement or detachment. The key is to understand that giving is only powerful when it's mutual. When both partners give and receive, it creates a cycle of respect, love, and trust. But when you're the only one giving, it creates a cycle of depletion and disappointment. The solution isn't to stop giving altogether, but to give wisely. Give to a man who values it, who reciprocates it, who appreciates it, not to one who sees it as his right. And most importantly, give from a place of fullness, not emptiness. You should never be giving because you're afraid of losing him, or because you think your value depends on how much you do for him. That kind of giving is rooted in fear, not love, and fear never earns respect. Men deeply respect women who respect themselves enough to stop overextending. They notice when you pull back from overgiving and start expecting reciprocity. They notice when you honor your own needs instead of sacrificing them for theirs. And when they see that you won't settle for being undervalued, they are forced to step up or step out. Either way, you win because you've chosen to protect your dignity. Giving is powerful, but only when it flows both ways. When you stop giving to those who undervalue you, you create space for those who will meet you with equal respect and equal effort. Boundaries are not walls, they are standards, and without them, respect cannot survive. Many women struggle with setting boundaries because they fear it will make them seem difficult, demanding, or unloving. But the truth is, the opposite is true. A woman without boundaries isn't seen as easygoing, she's seen as easy to take advantage of. A man may enjoy the freedom of pushing limits at first, but over time, his respect diminishes because he realizes you don't stand firmly in your own value. Respect comes from strength, and strength is demonstrated by your willingness to draw lines and hold them even when it's uncomfortable. When you fail to enforce boundaries, you allow behaviors that chip away at both your dignity and his perception of you. It might be tolerating lateness, accepting broken promises, ignoring dismissive remarks, or putting up with emotional neglect. Every time you let something slide that goes against your standards, you teach him that he doesn't have to meet them. It starts small, but it grows. Soon, what once made you uncomfortable becomes the new normal, and what was once unacceptable becomes tolerated. Men test boundaries, consciously or unconsciously, and your response determines whether respect grows or fades. If he learns that you'll bend every time, he'll stop respecting the standard altogether. A boundary is not about controlling someone else's behavior. It's about controlling your own choices. You can't force a man to respect you, but you can refuse to engage when he doesn't. You can't make him value your time, but you can choose not to give it to someone who wastes it. You can't demand his loyalty, but you can walk away from disloyalty. Boundaries are about self-respect, and that is what earns respect from others. When you enforce them without guilt, you communicate that your well-being is non-negotiable. And that kind of strength is magnetic. Men may resist at first, but ultimately they respect the woman who knows her worth and refuses to compromise it. The fear many women have is that setting boundaries will push a man away. But here's the truth: boundaries don't push away the right man, they filter out the wrong one. The man who truly respects you will adjust because he values what you bring to the relationship. He'll step up because he sees that you won't settle for less. The man who doesn't respect you will resist, argue, or leave, and that is a blessing, not a loss. You don't want a relationship built on the absence of boundaries, because without them, you sacrifice your self-respect, and once that's gone, the relationship has no solid foundation. There is also power in how you enforce boundaries. You don't have to yell, argue, or over-explain. Boundaries are most effective when they are quiet, consistent, and firm. It's not about making threats, it's about making choices. If he crosses a line, you don't plead with him to change. You show him through action that disrespect has consequences. That's where respect is born, not in words, but in the consistency of your behavior. Men respect women who respect themselves enough to enforce limits without guilt. They notice when you calmly remove yourself from situations that don't serve you. They notice when you expect accountability and don't cave under pressure. They notice when you carry yourself with the quiet strength of someone who doesn't beg for treatment she deserves but requires it by the way she lives. Boundaries are not selfish, they are essential. They protect your energy, your dignity, and your peace. And when a man sees that you will not compromise those things, his respect for you deepens, because he knows he is with a woman who values herself too much to allow anything less.